Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the Compassionate, the Merciful. My name is Ibrahim Hooper. I'm National Communications Director with the Council on American-Islamic Relations. We've got several attorneys here, and we've filed a lawsuit today, and I'll let them explain what's happening in terms of the Muslim ban and the federal lawsuit we filed today. First, we'll hear from our National Executive Director, Nihad Awad.
Thank you, Ibrahim, and thank you all for coming. My name is Nihad Awad, N-I-H-A-D, A-W-A-D, the National Executive Director of CAIR, the Council on American-Islamic Relations. First, let me make a few remarks on the incident that happened yesterday in Quebec, Canada. We have been receiving a lot of requests, worries from the community in the U.S. and in Canada. We offer our thoughts and prayers for those who were killed and those who were injured in Quebec Mosque. And also we are monitoring the situation surrounding the recent fire at the Islamic Center of Victoria in Texas. We do not know what were the motives that caused the mosque to be burnt and destroyed. As you can see, the Muslim community is a little bit anxious about the recent developments, not only since Donald Trump became the president, since Donald Trump announced his candidacy, our community has been very concerned. And our community is not alone to be concerned about his harmful rhetoric and now his dangerous policies. Millions of Americans are very, very concerned about the direction in which he's taking our country. Millions of people who love America, individuals and countries are concerned and worried what this president is doing. Unconventional, we understand. Creative, maybe. But also dangerously making policies and statements that we believe undermine our national security, our values, and our standing in the world. But also, his policies are threatening who we are as Americans. We know that this country was founded by immigrants. The founding fathers fled religious persecution from Europe and other countries. So this country was built on the shoulders of African Americans who were brought against their will, but also so many immigrants who sought freedom and freedom of expression and freedom of religion, which is in the First Amendment of our Constitution. To me, as an immigrant, as a refugee myself, I'm so blessed to be in the United States. And I embraced America. And I happen to also lead the largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization. Why? Because America granted me that opportunity, and I am fulfilling my dream. Donald Trump is destroying that dream and depriving millions of people to come to America to make America stronger and better. But at the same time, those refugees who are fleeing war, persecution, and violence, they need us the most. And traditionally, we have been open. We have been also careful about who comes in the country. We have not been reckless. There are national security agencies and law enforcement agencies who have been scrutinizing all these refugees and visa applicants. It takes 2 years for a Syrian refugee to come to the United States. They are extremely vetted. So eventually, Donald Trump's executive order is not based on national security. It is based on fear-mongering. He's still in the campaign mode. He has not switched to be a statesman. A statesman who has to unite Americans. Statesman who should send a message to the world that America is a friend, America is open, but also America is careful. Donald Trump is hurting who we are as Americans. And therefore, the way I see this lawsuit, it is really the law versus Donald Trump. It is the American traditional values of openness, human dignity, and respect versus Donald Trump. And that's why I'm so proud of our legal team who put this complaint together. And I'm also proud of the other national civil rights organizations who are putting a challenge to Donald Trump's dangerous policies. I'm happy to see here Lina Masri, our acting civil rights director and litigation director, Gadir Abbas, and also Sharif Akil. We're very proud of you because you're assuring me as a plaintiff and all Americans that the law is the law and due process and equal protection is what make America great and not what Donald Trump is doing. So my message to my brothers and sisters in the communities and to fellow Americans, we thank you. We thank you for being who you are. And we assure refugees and people who would like to come to America and respect the law that they will have that equal opportunity, and we will not allow Donald Trump to change the tradition of America and the future of this country. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from CAIR'S National Litigation Director, Lina Masri.
My name is Lina Masri. I'm the CAIR National Litigation Director. I'm also the Acting Civil Rights Director. This afternoon, we filed a federal lawsuit in the Eastern District of Virginia challenging what has been referred to as the Muslim ban, which was signed by President Trump this past Friday. This lawsuit is a broad constitutional challenge, and it was filed on behalf of over 20 Muslims consisting of both Americans and non-citizens that are lawfully residing in the United States. Let me be clear, this is not a Muslim ban, simply. It is a Muslim exclusion order. It is not only designed to strategically target Muslims to deny them entry into the United States, regardless of whether they're U.S. citizens, regardless of whether they're green card holders, or if they have lawful status. The untold story behind the Muslim exclusion ban order is that it initiates the expulsion of Muslims that are lawfully residing in the United States. By creating a religious persecution exception to only non-Muslims from the designated countries to enter, Muslims fleeing persecution in their home countries will be forced to return, despite the fact that they may be likely to be tortured, persecuted, or even executed. Fathers and mothers are being separated from their children. Husbands are being separated from their wives. Workers from continuing their employment and students from continuing their education, simply because they're Muslim. All of us as Americans will be denied access to our physicians, to our nurses, to our educators, to our engineers and professionals across civil society because they are Muslim. The Muslim exclusion order stands contrary to our values as American citizens and contrary to our U.S. Constitution. The Muslim exclusion order is a fulfillment of a campaign promise made by Trump prior to being elected, and it's also a message that he intends to fulfill his promises that he made during his campaign that are rooted in bigotry and in hate. We have and we will continue to stand together as Americans against injustice. When one group is targeted, we are all targeted. Thousands of Americans of all races and all creeds have demonstrated over this weekend in opposition to this Muslim exclusion order. That is beautiful, and that is what America is about.
Excuse me. Whoops. Hope that still works. Next, we'll hear from co-counsel, CAIR'S co-counsel in this case, Attorney Gadir Abbas.
My name is Gadir, Gadeir Abbas. President Trump's actions are not simply words on paper. They're the grandest monument to anti-Muslim sentiment that America has ever known. And it's fortunate for all of us in the Muslim community here, in the Muslim community across the globe, as well as the millions of Americans that condemn what Donald Trump has done, that the Constitution forbids what Donald Trump has done. We're not talking about the 15th Amendment or an amendment later in the teens or the 20s. We're talking about the very first amendment of the Constitution, which prohibits a government from favoring one faith over another. And there are few times in American history where the government has officially disfavored a whole religious faith. And this is one of those instances. And the fact that this is so unprecedented is an indication that the traditions of America are on the side of Muslims, they're on the side of those who defend civil liberties, and they're against those that want to do harm to the many Muslims in this country and abroad. And make no mistake about it, the effect of this ban, while obviously affecting the green card holders, the students on visas in this country, and others on temporary status here, this executive order affects all Americans. Every Muslim is feeling the stigma that this executive order imposes upon them. Every American Muslim, my friends, my family, our friends, our family, are feeling the fear and the bigotry that this executive order perpetuates. And we are seeing that thus far, 5 judges have had the opportunity to weigh in on the constitutionality of this executive order, and we're batting 5 for 5. 5 judges have found constitutional problems with this executive order, and so we hope to put an end to it once and for all.
And finally, we'll hear from their other CAIR co-counsel, Sharif Akil.
Folks, the lawsuit pretty much summarizes the extent of the claims and the variety of Americans that are being affected, and the variety of persons that are on American soil. But I do want to make 2 points that's very important here. Make no mistake, our First Amendment was attacked last week at its fundamental core, and it's unprecedented what has occurred. For the first time, there's a broad proclamation that our country has issued an edict that it prefers one religion over another. That would make our founding fathers roll in their graves, because that's the whole reason why they came here to America, to escape religious persecution. That's why you're seeing lawyers all over the nation. They're the foot soldiers of the Constitution, and they are for the people. They're the last line of defense between a people and a government, to protect the overreaching and to ensure everybody's allowed to practice their religion freely. The second thing that's very important, this order, folks, sends a dangerous message to the extremists, stating, hey, you know what? We're going to abandon our values too. We're not going to cherish and tolerate people's religion. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to prefer one religion over another. What kind of a message is that? That's giving them a gift. And that's why we're here. That's why there are lawyers all over. That's why CAIR'S in the forefront. Other organizations, ACLU, everybody is there to make sure that this doesn't happen. Thank you very much.
Somewhat limited in our room here. We'll take a few questions.
Yes, hi. Univision, yes. I wanted to know if any of the counsels would tell us exactly how the plaintiffs are damaged with their standing on this suit. How they're damaged by the
There's basically two groups of plaintiffs. There's the citizen plaintiffs and there's the non-citizen plaintiffs. The citizen plaintiffs are harmed in the same way that the non-citizen plaintiffs are harmed, insofar as the executive order broadcasts a message of condemnation of Islam and of Muslims. It's a public display of anti-Muslim sentiment, and that's a violation of the Establishment Clause. The non-citizen plaintiffs, these are folks that green card holders, people on student visas that are in the country. If they want to continue living in the U.S. and have access to the country, they can no longer leave because the executive order prohibits them from re-entry in the future, and that's the basis of their ability to participate in the lawsuit. But the Constitution redundantly prohibits the government from discriminating against religions. There are more than one provision of the Constitution that does that. And it's important to understand that the injury is not simply limited to those that are affected in their ability to enter and exit. The injury is being felt very viscerally by the Muslim American community across the country because of the message that it broadcasts.
Can you tell us if any of the plaintiffs were detained over the weekend? I haven't had a chance to completely review the whole thing, so I apologize if it's in there. And can you tell us how many people you know that are still in Virginia being detained?
Well, regarding your first question, none of the plaintiffs that are a part of this lawsuit have been detained over the weekend. With regards to the second answer, I don't have that information.
I think the detentions were handled on a case-by-case basis, so we might not even necessarily know about the individual detentions. In fact, I just got a call about the detentions in Virginia, and it's unclear because individual attorneys are on site working with those individual clients, so nobody has had a chance to really compile a database of all the detainees.
I think it's also just important to recognize that the purpose of this lawsuit is not only those that are being detained right now, but it has such an overreaching, broad scope that it's affecting many people. The ones that had immediate need were addressed, but the effects of this order has long-lasting consequences.
If not, if no other questions,
Just one
okay.
comment. As I said in my earlier remarks, the President of the United States has clearly been broadcasting messages and has been clearly evidenced in the executive order that Islam is inherently violent. This is the statement, and now it is an executive order that reinforces this by excluding more than 200 million people from coming to the United States based on their faith. It reflects badly on us as citizens. It is giving green light for people to go after Muslims, to discriminate against Muslims, because Muslims are seen as potential harm to our country, to our national security. And that is very irresponsible. It endangers our well-being, our safety as Americans and as Muslim Americans. So it has a profound effect on our lives as citizens, on our children, on our communities, on their safety, on their institutions. And that's why it is very important in defending the Muslim community. We are defending the United States Constitution. In defending the Muslim community, we are defending the best values of this country. In defending the Muslim community, we are defending everyone who's concerned about how dangerous these policies can go.
Do you have any concerns because now Mr. Bannon is part of the National Security Council, and maybe this could be the beginning of more measures like this in regards to minorities, not only Muslim people but also Hispanics?
True. Not only American Muslims, minority groups, Latino Americans, Mexicans, African Americans, women, all those who have been offended by Donald Trump and by his senior officials and advisors like Steve Bannon are worried and should be worried. But now we seem to be in the forefront now in defending the Constitution of the United States. We're not alone. We see millions of people in the streets for the past weeks. We see people filled up U.S. airports nationwide. The majority of them are not Muslim. And they say, we are all Muslim today. Not that because they're converting to Islam, but they see the danger of allowing this president to continue to erode our civil liberties and our values and our reputation and standing around the world.
And are you joining maybe some of the forces? Are you planning a broader coalition to fight against these issues?
We are working in coalition with so many local, regional, and national organizations, and we support their efforts as well. So we are forming one united front on behalf of all Americans who are worried about the violation of our Constitution.
Just today in San Diego, our office there is holding a joint news conference with Interfaith and Hispanic and other leaders to form a coalition to challenge these kinds of things. We've had other initiatives with the Hispanic community, with African Americans, as I said, with all different communities, because it's not, and I think that's why you're seeing so many people out in the streets, because it's not just the Muslim community that is feeling targeted. There's a sense that everyone is potentially targeted by these kinds of policies, and that's what's bringing out the larger society, bringing out. We had 20,000 people at 24 hours notice turn out in a public square in Boston yesterday. It's just absolutely amazing. When in past years, if you did a civil rights rally, you might struggle to get a handful of people. Now 20,000 people come out at the drop of a hat with less than 24 hours notice. So I think there is a building momentum, there's a building movement challenging the erosion of civil rights in our nation. Maybe the last question, and then we'll go one-on-one.
Have you gotten support from lawmakers on your opposition to the ban?
It's still early. We just announced on Friday that we would be doing this, so I don't know if anybody even knows the answer to that question, just because it's too early in the process to even seek support. They weren't even in their offices until this morning.
How these measures can create or cause more hate crimes against Muslim communities?
Well, when you create the impression through the use of these kinds of orders that an entire minority community is a national security threat, some people, a tiny minority of people out there, are going to take it upon themselves to deal with that threat. And we see it in the incredible increase in anti-Muslim hate crimes since the election. Unfortunately, the election seems to have empowered anti-Muslim bigots in our society. Just on the threats and the hate messages we receive on a daily basis has gone way up. We've seen incidents targeting mosques around the country. We saw the incident in Quebec. We don't know what the motivation is on that yet, but obviously it's of great concern. We'll wait to see what happens with that situation. Maybe one last, yeah.
Very briefly, legally now, your request to the court would be a stay of the implementation of this executive order, or to eventually rescind it?
Yeah.
Or what is it?
It's an injunction against the executive order, so essentially wipes away the executive order, restrains it. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you. Oh, did you have something?
Well, yeah, but our specific focus too is regarding the second page. You'll see specifically Article 5 in there, where there is a specific preference of a priority of a refugee based on their faith. That's really an alarming provision in there. It's unprecedented, and once you open the door and you start doing that, today it's a Muslim, tomorrow will be a Protestant.
So that's your priority, that you would want first the judge to rule on that?
Well, that's a primary, that's a strong, yes, that there shouldn't be a priority of refugees based on their faith.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming, and everybody's available for one-on-one interviews. And again, thank you all for coming.